Hey guys, welcome back. And as promised, we have some more Road National Master, and we are playing our first tournament this year. This is the very first tournament I'm gonna play. And yeah, I don't know why, but I've really been enjoying making these Road National Masters more than I have making other instructive content. Maybe it's just me because they're my games and I have an emotional attachment to them, but I really enjoy making these videos. Hope you guys enjoy them as well. You guys learn from it, and you can also draw inspiration to go play some chess yourselves, and that's really my goal here. So we're playing this tournament, and it's the Brasiliense Clássico yet again. So every single tournament I played last year, it was a Brasiliense Clássico tournament, and there were many stages to that. There were three actual stages, and then the fourth tournament I played that year was the regionals, and in the regionals I got eighth place. So I was hoping to score very well here. And you can see that right here, my rating is now 1812. So yeah, we finally got our rating out. It sucks that it's 1812. I wanted it to be a bit higher, but you know, oh well. So, okay, 1812. And we are kicking off against Caio Menges, a regular face at the chess scene. He's played many tournaments. I've never faced him though, so this was interesting. So thing about him, I think he is a student of an MF, and he was teaching him a bit about this line before the game. And yeah, we got into this line here where I play knight f3, just my normal Reti stuff. Knight f6 is very typical, and now after a few moves, okay, we get this kind of reverse London structure here for black, and I just go ahead and castle, e6, c4, and now a bit of a strange move, but not a bad move in and of itself, but knight bd7, and I really didn't know what to play against this move, because I had this notion in my mind that when you get this type of pawn structure, and there's well, the problem here is the pawn structure. Like, there aren't three pawns defending. Sorry, there isn't this triangle here, basically. And if there was this triangle, I just would never take this pawn. But since there isn't the triangle, and he's going to be forced to take back with a pawn, I can probably look to play something like knight c3, d4, bishop to f4, this kind of stuff. However, I think in order to play this, d4 had to come first. I think that was the problem in my mind. I think I had to play d4 first, and he plays something like bishop e7, and then I'm good to take. But I take now, and he takes back. And sure, yeah, I can go d4, or I can play a very standard setup with d3 as well. This is also very common. And okay, sure. So it's not good to change plans in like after you've just begun executing them. It's good to stick to your plans, even though it may be a bad plan. It's good to stick to them. But I think this move was yeah, highly dubious, because okay, let's just go through this then. My idea now with d3 is that I'm going to go knight c3, knight d4, the bishop will drop back, and then I can push e4. And then whenever they take, my pawn takes back, and my queen is defending this knight on d4. And I'd have very good sense control, and that would look just amazing for me. So this was basically the idea. But again, I should have just stick to my idea of playing d4 and knight c3, bishop f4, this kind of stuff, and I think I'd be okay. And the problem with going d3 here is that now he plays bishop c5, which I just didn't even expect. I just had no expectation for this move whatsoever, and now I'm like, God, really wishing I could play d4 here. Really wishing I'd played this, and I'm considering now, like, okay, do I waste the tempo and play d4 now? And you know what? I just say, after a very long think, I decide that the best continuation here is just to stick to the basic development moves with knight c3, which is the best engine move here, by the way. So knight c3, castles, and this is where I start going downhill. So yeah, I can't go knight e4. Sorry, I can't go knight d4. That much is obvious because the bishop controls d4. So I think to myself, what if I go knight h4? Which I do go, and it's not a good move because now all that black really has to do is just move the bishop back, and he is looking really well, really, really good in this position. And it begs the question, what's my knight doing on this on the edge of the board? Just chilling. It's chilling. But anyways, okay, at least I get the bishop off the diagonal. So now I can play e4. e4 again, not extremely precise, but you know what? It's not terrible. c6. And I feel like I've already lost the thread here because typically white has an advantage when they start the game, and I just felt no advantage here. It's just a dead equal game. Like black has already equalized and hasn't done much to actually test me, you know. It's just an easy equalization that I gave my opponent for not playing correctly. So I was already a bit upset with myself at this point, and I was just saying, okay, well, you know what? The position is the position. Let's just play the best move on the board that I can find, and that, in my eyes, was queen c2, with the idea of rook d1 kind of stuff, and at least have some very active pieces. Bring my knight back to f3 afterwards. Maybe f5 in a certain position, although I don't think f5 is all that good. I would say, yeah, bring the knight back, and then play from there. So, queen c2 on the board, the best move, and again, I'm just hoping to get a good position here. And my opponent plays queen c7, which is not a good move, unfortunately. It's not a good move because now my plans all come together, and the idea I had at the very beginning of playing knight c3 and bishop f4 come to life because now I can just play bishop f4 straight away. And the point of this is you can't defend this with bishop d6. You cannot defend it with bishop d6. Not because white is going to play e5, it's because white's going to play knight b5. And then I'm hitting your queen and your bishop. So you have to address your queen being hit. If you take this knight, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your queen, you're going to take my queen, and I'm going to take your bishop. And what's left on the board are these double pawns, which are stacked. And this is not a good sign. And it's not a good sign to have this and give your opponent the bishop pair. So this was my compensation, and I would be really happy to see this. So my opponent is a good player. He doesn't have a rating, but he is a fairly good player. So he doesn't see, he sees this and doesn't play it. He plays queen a5, which I'm also not sure about because queen a5 doesn't really come with a threat. And it's basically just giving me a free tempo to actually reroute my knight from h4 and get it back into the game. And maybe now I have some tactical possibilities. And unfortunately, another bad move from him. Rook ac8. It typically doesn't come across as a good idea to place a rook on a file that has not been opened. So this isn't even a semi-open file for him, it's just a closed file because of his pawn. It would be way better to have a rook on this open file here, but he goes rook c8, probably with the idea that he wants to push these pawns all the way down the board, which also doesn't make sense why you put your queen on a5 because it kind of stops you from being able to push as effectively. So some coordination problems, and coordination is super important, guys. So this is something that is super instructive. You need to have your pieces coordinating properly, and you can play like a perfect development game. You can have all of your pieces out on the chessboard, and you can even be ahead in development. But if you're not like developing precisely, like, okay, let's say you're up 2 developments from your opponent, but those developments were knight a3 and knight h3. I mean, can you really call it a good development? Sure, in some positions it's very natural to play like, okay, knight f3, knight c2, this kind of stuff, but I mean, it's very dependent on the opening. And in this case, I don't think these two developments are really good or practical. So this gives me a golden opportunity now, rook a8, to play. Okay, actually, I'll ask you guys to pause the video and try and find the next best move. So I had two very strong candidates, but only one is the best move, and it comes with a very strong threat. So pause the video, see if you can find the threat that I'm mentioning, and yep, I'm gonna have a sip of tea. Or my giant C cup. Okay, so the two candidates are knight g5 and e5. So they both come with the same idea. They're both going to be played together, but the move order is important here. So what's the idea? The idea is that once I play these two moves, my queen is opened up and my knight is attacking this this h7 square, and his knight will have to leave because of the pawn. So which is best? The best move is actually to play e5 first. And it may look scary or wrong because he plays knight d5 and he's attacking our bishop, which we really don't want him attacking. Like, let's say he captures this bishop on just like natural terms. Will we capture? And we've kind of ruined our king side, haven't we? So this wouldn't be really good. But it is good in this case because now we play knight g5. You don't have time to take because it's checkmate on h7. You have to play g6 first, and it has to be g6. I was considering stuff like, yeah, you actually can't play f5 because of just knight captures. So f5 is not a move. You have to play g6 completely forced, and now I play knight takes c6. And f takes e6. If you play the losing move, knight takes, then our knight can actually recapture and get all the way back. And this is just a very good position for us. Engine was actually giving just knight takes here, in fact. And this would be even better, so this is why. So, f takes. And now my bishop is under attack, threatening to win a pawn here. Black is. So take, take, and take is pretty simple, and we lose a pawn. So we need to move the bishop. And okay, so here's the thing. I have not been playing as well as I have other tournaments in terms of calculation. That's been a really big problem this tournament, and you guys are going to see it a lot. So basically, what I had to play in this position was bishop h6. Bishop h6 hitting the rook, and I was scared of ideas like rook f7 and this kind of stuff, and followed by bishop f8. So let's see like something similar to that. Okay, let's say rook fe8 to defend this e6 pawn, which is sensible. Knight e4 hitting the bishop, bishop f8, bishop takes, rook takes, and I saw this position and I was like, okay, but what do I really gain from this? Like, I've traded off the dark square bishops. I'd like to have my dark square bishop to attack him, and I just completely missed that I had knight d6. That's it. And it's not even that deep. It was like, okay, 1, 2, 3. It was 4 moves for white, basically. I should have seen this. This is just ridiculous not to see. And this knight would be absolutely monstrous here. There's just no good way to defend this e6 square. Like, bishop h3 is definitely a killer idea here. This is hit as well. Like, everything is hit. This is hit. Just a very, very nice position here. And I completely missed it. I played bishop d2. And bishop d2 isn't as strong. It doesn't completely give up the advantage, but it's definitely definitely a lot less precise. So bishop d2, and he follows up with knight takes. Bishop takes is very logical. We of course don't want a queen trade here because we're the ones attacking. We're the ones that's trying to hammer down on that weak e6. And queen b6. So now I will ask you guys, white to play and begin a monstrous attack. White to play. And I saw this idea over the board. I just completely overlooked it, and again, calculation problems. So really, calculation is something that I'm gonna need to be working on very deeply for the next tournament. So Queen b6 was played, and the move to begin an attack is b4, sacrificing a pawn. And the idea here is that if you actually take the pawn, like let's say you have to take with the bishop, by the way, rook a b1. And how do you really defend this bishop? If you play like c5, then I'm gonna play a3, and you can't move the bishop because it's pinned, basically. And if you move the bishop back, what happens in this position is you have just given me a free pass to play something like queen b3. First you play bishop h3. King has to go to f7 to defend, because it's literally the only way to defend this pawn. Rook a d1 hitting the knight. Rook defends the knight, and then queen b3. How are you going to protect d6? And this was just extremely powerful, and I should have seen this. So yeah, this was definitely a big miss for me. Instead, I go rook a d1, and my advantage is slowly dropping. It's not dead, it's still here, but it's slowly dropping. You can see that his pieces, which were initially uncoordinated, start getting really good coordination really quickly. Bishop h3, rook e8, king g2, and you can see all of this coordination here on this this f2 square, and I was trying to deal with this by playing king g2. Maybe some ideas of f4 was coming. This was kind of like my conception here. If I play f4, I kind of really diminish his attack here on my f2 pawn, and I can also just control the only open file, which is this d file. So this was the idea. Knight f8 was a really good defensive resource here, just completely stopping any checks from the back rank, completely covering all of these pawns. This was an amazing move by my opponent. I saw he could play it, but I seriously underestimated its strength. And then I go a3 again, another mistake. I think here I could still play b4, and I was calculating b4, but the fact that this knight was here really took away from this idea. I was thinking maybe b4 immediately with the idea that this bishop comes in, and then it's kind of like, okay, well, all of black's pieces are kind of stuck and cramped, right? They're all just stuck in this box. And so this was kind of my idea of playing a3, b4, but again, b4 could probably come immediately. And rook d8 just gives him all the time he needs in the world to kind of untangle the position here. I'm still trying to find all the best moves. I take, rook d1. And it may look scary because, well, you've just undefended f2. Can't they take here? If you take here, then queen takes, desperado. Queen takes, and then we take the bishop, which is undefended. So this would have been a nice way to win a piece. So he doesn't take, of course. He's a good player, like we've mentioned. Rook d7. And I really don't want to trade all my pieces off. I mean, sure, the structure is better for me. The endgame is probably a lot better since I have the bishop pair, but still, I wanted to make more of the position and just attack him, and I needed more pieces to do so. So, okay, well, this knight here on f8 completely neutralizes my bishop on h3, so let's just play bishop g4 and get it back into the game, which happens. Queen d5 was kind of a nothing move, because I can just play bishop f3, queen c4, queen d2, and now my pieces are starting to untangle, and I'm starting to make some real progress here. And a6, okay, so he's pushing his majority, but h4 with the idea of h5 here incoming, trying to severely damage his structure on the king side, and maybe make something happen here, like queen here. Take, and then get my pieces in somehow. Like, this was definitely an idea. So h5 by him, kind of stopping that. Queen d8, And here my opponent makes a mistake, which is very tough that this is a mistake, but it is a mistake nevertheless. He plays bishop takes a3, which looks like a simple tactic because it picks up the pawn, and if I take his bishop, he takes my bishop. He just has a very nice majority on the queen side, but I find the only move that saves the position, queen b6. The idea of queen b6 being I'm actually not obligated to take you, right? I'm not obligated to take on a3. And, well, okay, now I'm hitting b7. How do you defend b7? You can't defend it. You literally can't defend it. If you go queen b5, I'm going to queen trade you, and then I'm going to take your bishop and be up. So you really can't play that. So bishop c5, I take on b7, queen b5, and again, problems in calculation. I was having a hard time translating this this position to the next following moves that would be played in the endgame, which is really bad by me. So I tried to calculate some other stuff, like, okay, what if I don't queen trade and I keep on attacking him? And I just make a mistake immediately. I play queen c8. And queen c8 would allow... Okay, he plays a5, but let's actually dive a bit deeper to what would be the best move. Queen takes would be good. We'd get into this endgame, which is definitely good for me. And bishop takes would be a mistake, which I was calculating because of queen e2. And there's nothing I can do to stop a draw. I'd have to go bishop f3, queen takes, king h3, and he can just check me forever. And that would be a draw. So, yeah, this was definitely something I was completely oblivious to. I didn't even see this idea of queen e2. And of course, the FM, who was his trainer and was watching the game, immediately saw it. And it comes through after a5, and now I take it. So queen e2 is the move, and that just is a very easy draw for him. He goes queen b6, with the idea of hitting f2 that way, but unfortunately now I can play queen b7 and kind of fix my mistake. So he takes a pawn, that's okay. And we're just playing this very equal endgame. And I mean, if anyone's better, it's definitely white here because of the bishop pair. Very active pieces, and yeah, I have more space. So this would definitely be slightly advantageous for me, but also I don't see, like, I have to play really precisely to actually get something from the position, right? So king f7, king e4, and my idea is now to go bishop d4 to kind of neutralize his bishop, because if I can trade this bishop off, like trade this bishop for this bishop, and they just don't exist on the board, what's left is this really good bishop against this really bad knight. And this was my hopes and dreams. And my hopes and dreams got a little bit sweeter, even sweeter, after knight d7, which is a blunder. So white to play and win. I'll leave you guys to it. Solution: bishop takes d7. Bam. Bishop takes d7, and you can play the intermediate move here. Bishop takes d4, kind of trading off all the minor pieces. And you had to do this because your bishop on b6 was hanging. You can't take on d7 or you just win a piece. King takes, king takes, king c5. And this is a winning endgame. There's no way in hell you can defend a5. And you're even going to be zugged out after king c7 and just b3. King c8, I play king c6, which was a bit bad. I could have just went king d6 and win the pawn, and that would be completely winning. But nevertheless, king c6, and my opponent resigns because he sees there's just no hope here for the position. And yeah, this was round 1 of the tournament, and we're leading with 1 point. So, very good game. I should mention as well that in all of that queen e2 stuff that I missed, I was in serious time pressure. I had like 5 minutes and he had half an hour. So yeah, I was very down bad on the clock, but we made it work. It happened. We won the game, and I'm happy with this game. I'm proud of it. It was a really good game in my eyes. So that's it for today. Stay tuned for game 2, which I'll be posting very shortly and very soon. Keep an eye out for that. Subscribe if you're not subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.